correspondent. Please welcome back to the show real estate expert Michael Jacobo and his special guest, the deck guy, Jim Grant.
Here they are. What's up, fellas?
Hello, hello. How are you?
Guys doing? A little golf clap.
Doing just great.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So, Michael.
Yes.
It's great to have you back on the show. Good
Thank
to see you,
very
my
much for
friend.
having me. Of course.
You wanted to bring Jim today for a very specific reason. Tell us why.
Absolutely. I thought it would be a perfect opportunity to bring Jim on today. We have, considering we're coming into spring and then summertime, I felt like it was a perfect opportunity to bring him on because lately I've been showing a lot of property in and around North County, San Diego, Encinitas specifically, Escondido, San Marcos, all around. And what I've been seeing, a lot of these properties, beautiful homes, meticulous inside, and then we go to the backyard and we're seeing these wood decks, beautiful, huge wood decks that have just been a little bit, let's call it, run down.
Ignored?
Ignored, so to
That
speak,
happens,
exactly.
right? Neglected.
And it's funny because you walk into the home and everything is meticulous. Everything is perfectly placed. And then you walk outside and, ignored is the exact word to use. And that's a lot of money. And I think it's relevant to talk about because from a buyer's perspective, a buyer looks at this and says, oh, gosh, that's going to cost me $50,000, $100,000 to replace, fix, what have you. I thought it'd be good to bring on Jim, who's an expert in this area that he could talk about exactly. And he could maybe shed some light on what to do for homeowners that are considering putting their home on the market, putting their home to sell, or if there is a homeowner that's considering building a new deck.
Yeah.
So I thought Jim would be a good time, good person to talk at the right time here.
Okay, I agree totally. Because Jim, thank you for being here. By the way, it's great
You're
to have
certainly
you here.
welcome.
I've got a lot of questions for you. So
Fire away.
I mean, I totally understand why most people, the deck is pretty low on the totem pole, right? You got to get kids to school, you got work, you got this, you get, your financial plan, you're doing all these things, groceries, yada yada yada, cleaning the house, which
Right.
people can, you see that every day, so it's easy to go, I need to do that, but then you're like, we haven't hung out on the deck in a couple of months. You go out there, and by then, damage has already been done, right, Jim? So for people who own homes, who have decks right now, that maybe they've been neglecting, that's probably the word we should use, neglecting the deck, what can those be? Is there anything that can be done if you haven't been keeping it up?
Certainly. The most important thing is to have the deck looked at least every 2 years. That would be a structural inspection to make sure that the deck is in good shape, the boards are not rotting, hardware is not rusting, and then also to establish some type of a maintenance plan where the lumber is cleaned and sealed at least every 2 years with most decks, most fences.
And are people getting like aluminum or like, some sort of like vinyl decks these days? Is that something that exists out there, or is it just wood?
There's a lot of choices for decking. There are composite decks, there are redwood decks, cedar. One of the most common decking products right now is a tropical hardwood.
Okay.
Ipe or Mangaris. Excellent decks. They're fire rated, so you can use those lumbers in a fire zone. A lot of the backcountry areas, you can build a wood deck with the Ipe or the Mangaris. If you don't want to use those type of a hardwood, you can still use the traditional redwood or cedar. And there are composite deck products as well. They're not maybe as warm and inviting as some of the wood products, but they are available.
A little clinical? Is it
a little bit industrial,
sterile,
in my opinion.
So is it worth it though? Because if you get something that's wood, you're going to have to keep it up, right? You're going to have to maintain, you're going to have to do some TLC, right?
There is maintenance that is going to be involved with a wood deck. Absolutely, no question. The composites will need to be cleaned as well. Once every couple of years, they will need some cleaning done on them.
Just like a power washer though, right? I mean, you don't have to do anything too crazy.
Power washer, some deck cleaners, stiff brush, scrub it down, rinse it down.
So are you not a fan then of the composite stuff because it just doesn't have that finished product where you can go at the end?
I think the composite decks are fine in a certain application. A lot of commercial properties will use a composite deck. Restaurants in particular, down around the harbor, down around the water, they use composite decking. I think for a home, I like the look of a wood deck for a home.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So the maintenance doesn't need to happen every day. You don't have to go out there and clean it off every day, but you do have to pay attention to the thing.
You certainly do. I tell my clients about every 30 or 60 days, rinse the deck down, keep it clean. Either that or take a brush and just sweep it. Keep it good and clean, and just try to keep a good coat of sealer or a good coat of paint on the deck.
Okay. So that's for people who have a deck that's maybe in decent shape, but they're not paying attention to it. Start paying attention to it is the thing. What about for people who have a deck that clearly needs more than just some TLC? Where there's a situation where you got maybe some brittle aspects. The last home I lived in, the deck completely needs to be redone. I mean, I could tell, like, there's, it's bowing, it's bending, there's stuff is, wood is crumbling in the corners. I mean, stuff like that.
Dry rotting, yeah.
Yeah, for someone like that, do you have to get a whole new deck when it comes to that situation? Can you repair stuff sometimes?
It all depends on how long the deck has been neglected. If the deck hasn't had any type of maintenance in 10, 15, 20 years, there's a possibility that you're going to have some structural issues that are going to need to be addressed. If you don't have those structural issues and the bones of the deck are intact, you can certainly take off the old decking and put new decking on.
Okay. So you may just be able to
You can do a renovation.
Parts off,
you can do a renovation.
replace with good parts. That makes sense. I imagine you've probably done or seen some pretty elaborate decks too in your time. For people who maybe have some scratch or who have a view that they really want to take advantage of, what's some of the craziest stuff you've seen?
I've seen some beautiful decks on some gorgeous properties all the way from Newport Beach, Laguna, San Diego, La Jolla, Del Mar, Mount Helix. I've just seen some stunning decks with fantastic views, with beautiful designs, and I have photographs of pretty much every deck that I've ever worked on for the past 25 years. So I help clients a lot. If they're going to build a new deck or do a renovation, I'm able to let them go back and look at my portfolio, and they'll pick out different pieces from different decks and say, well, I want that railing with that deck with that type of wood. So I've got thousands of photographs of my deck projects over the last 25 years.
Yeah, well, that's pretty cool. So, I mean, Southern California is beautiful outside. It's a great climate.
Right.
People want to spend time outside. I mean, it's a selling point, right, Michael?
That's
I mean,
a big selling point.
If you have a nice deck, I mean, people walk out and go, oh,
exactly.
Yeah.
oh, we could spend every night out here. We can eat dinner out here. It's a huge selling point for a property, isn't it?
Yes, and that's exactly why I wanted him here today.
Yeah.
Is because I think it is very important to make sure that not just the home being turnkey, but also the backyard, also the deck specifically.
Yeah, because it can be expensive, right? I mean, at some of these repairs, Jim, they could get up to tens of thousands of dollars.
You can spend a lot of money on doing repair work if you don't stay on top of your maintenance. Deferring maintenance is really not a good idea when it comes to a deck or home siding or even a patio cover. It's to defer that maintenance is going to cost you more money in the long run. So you're better off to establish a regular maintenance program right at the construction time of the deck and figure out what you're going to be doing with the maintenance on it.
Let's say I don't know any of that stuff. Let's say I bought a house 2, 3, 4 years ago. I have no idea when the deck was built. I have no idea what to do about it. We go out there. I mean, it certainly doesn't look brand new anymore, but seems to be okay. Are you the guy that I could call to say, hey, help me establish a plan for this deck?
Certainly. We can come out, take a look at the deck, make sure, like I mentioned earlier, that it structurally is intact, that the support members are not rotten, not decayed, and they're in good shape. And if they're not, then we can certainly, suggest a course of action to bring the deck into good repair.
Yeah, I'm glad you keep mentioning the structural aspects because I think that's incredibly important, just from a homeowner liability standpoint,
Right,
Michael. I know
right.
as an agent, you know this, like, when you're selling a home or whether you're just living in a home and having people over for dinner or drinks or whatever it may be, the structural integrity of your deck is going to be really, really important. And I've never heard of it happening out here in San Diego, but back home, I'm from Missouri, right? So we get, freezing cold temperatures and extreme humidity and stuff. You can imagine, Jim, what the decks are like out there. It's crazy. But you always hear about, decks failing, someone falling, it breaks, this and that. I haven't heard it happening out here ever, but I know that's an issue.
I was going to ask about that. What type of things should people be aware of with their decks in regards to weather?
Well, certainly look for any wood that is decayed or spongy or termite damage. That's certainly something to look for. There are hidden things in a deck also that maybe you might not be aware of. Moisture damage where the ledger attaches to a wall. That ledger should really be intact. Hardware that has any kind of rust on it should certainly be looked at and replaced if necessary.
Okay, so hardware with rusting, which is going to be pretty easy to happen here, this close to the ocean, right? If you're not treating it, if you're not priming it, appropriately. any damage, stuff like that you should notice, because if it's in the right place, it could be a big problem, right? It may be nothing, but it could be a big problem.
Sure. Yeah, it's just really good to have it looked at. If you have any questions on things like that, a really good resource is the J&W Lumber Stores. They have an excellent staff. They can answer any questions on rotted wood, hardware. They have everything in stock that you need to do any kind of repair, and they can offer good suggestions on exterior finishes.
Okay. All right. So what was it? JW Lumber?
J&W Lumber. They have 6 locations around San Diego. Family owned, great to work with, and they're just a valuable resource for any homeowner.
That's a locally owned company too, right?
Yes.
All right, Jim. So if there's one thing you want everybody watching this show to know about decks, what is it?
No matter what the condition of the deck or the lumber, it can be brought back and restored to a really nice condition, and with the right coatings or the right finishes, the life of the deck can be extended.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be over.
No,
the beautiful deck that you remember can be replaced
for a fraction of the cost.
It can be saved.
It can be saved. Okay, great stuff. Thank you guys so much for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for
Jim,
having us.
The deck guy, Michael Jacobo.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Stick around for more Smarter San Diego TV, where we guarantee to make you smarter than everyone else, commercial free.
I got to my feet and I was like, whoa, like something is not right. This is Simon, like you have fracture, compression fracture on your L2 vertebrae. The broke is almost clean through. When he said that, it wasn't really surfing that was in my mind. It was just like, am I going to be able to just, am I going to be okay? Like, am I going to be able to walk? Like,
That's the thing. Remember, it's going to get a lot weaker, which makes the dollar a lot stronger, and that kills off all the other
better their product,
markets
better
as
their
well,
systems, and make
because
sure
they're
that
reliant on
putting something
getting.
Yeah, I've never heard
pay back
of
their loans in the dollar.
an
They've got
investor
to pay
group
back
or a flipping
obligations
company
in
that will
dollars.
come back a year later and fix something. If there's a